Honorable members, good afternoon. It is exactly 1300 hours. Ms. Nicker, are we correcting?
Good afternoon, everybody. Chairperson, yes, we are. You may proceed.
Thank you. My name is Noko Masipa. I am the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Economic Development and Tourism. With me, our colleagues, I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then I'll do the necessary welcoming of Premier Foods. Over to you, members.
Greetings, everyone. I am member Brandon Adams. I'm a member of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Khalil Brankesh, member of the committee.
Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Nomi Nkondlo. I'm also a member of this committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Chair. Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Thank you. Are we done? Honorable members, just to introduce those who are joining us from Premier Foods is Mr. Gubas Kettenbach and Mr. Rolf Hartmann. Mr. Kettenbach and Hartmann, you are warmly welcomed to this afternoon committee meeting. I will hand over to you a little bit later to do your presentation. And with us, we are joined by Head of Ministry, Mariki van Jasveld, and also the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Morokom, and the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Mr. Dingani. Casidra is also joined us as they are responsible for rural development. We have got with us Dr. Keith du Plessis as their CFO, Bronwyn Govender. And welcome, Mrs. Govender. I understand you are the new Chief Financial Officer. We're looking forward to working with you. And also we've got Mr. David Neft. With that said, with that introduction, are there other apologies that I might have missed, Ms. van Niekerk?
Chairperson, we have received an apology from Minister Ivan Meyer.
Okay, thank you.
And I noticed that the HOD for the Department of Economic Development and Tourism has joined the meeting.
Okay, Ms. Joanne, welcome to the meeting. Honorable members, we'll be going on recess period, and you felt that there is a need to engage on these matters as you will be engaging voters in the next 64 days before election. And the item here before us, CO, is that of Premier Foods pending closure, which has got severe economic blow to our region. And honorable members felt it is important to dispense with this item before going on recess. Before we begin, the committee wishes to emphasize that this invitation is not intended to interfere with the commercial decision-making process of Premier Foods or to prescribe the outcome of any private sector decision-making. Rather, the purpose of this briefing is to enable the committee to exercise its oversight responsibilities, obtain clarity on matters of public interest, and understand the potential implications of proposed closure of the Western Cape economy for the Western Cape economy and affected communities. As this committee evaluates the situation, we must also not fail members to look at this crisis through the lens of recent data that we have got before us. The research shows us, makes it clear that while Premier Foods operates within a sector capable of world-class standards, it is a sector currently being strangled by structural bottlenecks, which I will touch, and shifting global realities. To anchor our discussion today, I want to highlight three critical takeaways from the industry data that provide the backdrop to this crisis. Premier Foods and the broader sector are the biggest job creators in the rural Western Cape, contributing massively to rural development. Yet, despite this immense local footprint, the data shows the industry has zero presence on the African continent. Furthermore, global research warns us that growing supermarket dominance is forcing agri-food manufacturers worldwide into horizontal alliances or offshore relocation just to survive. Our deciduous fruit canning industry is strongly export-driven, sending 85% of its stock abroad. While this proves our quality is world-class, it exposes our factories to extreme vulnerability. A volatile rand, global crisis, and unfair foreign subsidies mean that when the global market shivers, our local factories collapse. We need to understand how this paradox pushed Premier Foods to the brink. The data reveals a massive internal failure in our supply chain. South Africa suffers from a can manufacturing monopoly, with only 2 manufacturers dominating the country, coupled with the unfair pricing of raw tin plate and rising costs of electricity and transport. Our processors are trapped in a high-cost environment they cannot control. CEO, this committee needs to know, is the pending closure of Premier Foods an unavoidable casualty of this global and structural pressures, or is there a path forward? Can we leverage the National Agriculture Processing Master Plan to save these rural jobs? In particular, the committee will appreciate clarity on the following specific matters during your briefing: the rationale and key considerations underlying the proposed closure of the Telbach facility, the potential impact of the proposed closure on permanent and seasonal employees, the anticipated implications for fruit producers and agricultural production in the region, particularly in relation to the upcoming November harvest season, the nature and status of contractual obligations between Premier Foods and affected producers, and how these obligations may be affected by the proposed closure, whether alternative operating ownership, investment, or other commercial models have been considered, and the status of any such engagements, the implications, if any, of the conditions imposed by the Competition Commission in relation to the transaction involving Rhodes Food Group and Premier Foods, particularly as far as this may be relevant to the current circumstances, the extent and nature of consultation and communication undertaken with affected producers, employees, organized labor, government, and other relevant stakeholders. I must also indicate to the CEO that we did engage the government. They did share their involvement with the Premier Foods and what they have gone through with you. Any measures being considered by Premier Foods to mitigate the potential economic and social impact of the proposed closure. Thank you. Before I invite the CEO to brief the committee, I just want to make following announcement regarding the House rules. It is important the CEO to speak through the chair so that we can have a easy communication. And as such, the committee will obviously, once you have presented your presentation, they will have an opportunity to ask clarity, seeking questions, but also to note that meeting is open to public, so there might be people that are viewing from the public. Over to you, CEO. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and all the committee members. Thank you very much for this opportunity to come and present some information to the committee on behalf of Premier Foods. We received the request from the committee on Friday afternoon, and the committee asked if we could see them today, as you mentioned, ahead of the recess, and we managed to pull together our resources, clear our diaries, and we're very happy to spend the time with the committee here this afternoon. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I just want to also add that also on the call today is Mr. Peter Honeycomb. He is the previous CEO of Rhodes Food Group and also now the head of the culinary division within Premier. And he, together with Rolf Hartman, will be supporting me in this presentation. We received the information request late on Friday over the weekend that covers most of the areas, Mr. Chairman, that you have highlighted. I'm going to try and answer those questions and areas to the best of our ability and through the presentation, and then would be very happy, as you suggested, to take any questions that the committee or anybody from the public may have. So at this point, I think I'm going to just kick off and start with the presentation. So just from a little bit of a background perspective, Premier, the whole of the Premier Group is a very big business within the Western Cape province of South Africa. We have a fairly large wheat mill and the largest bakery in our group residing at Salt River in Cape Town, where we produce the Blue Ribbon brand for the Western Cape, as well as the snowflake flour that gets sold within the Western Cape market. We also own a bakery in George that supplies that part of the Western Cape and into just across the border of the Western Cape into the adjacent areas of the Eastern Cape. We have multiple factories on one site in the Groot Drakenstein area. And that factory produces fresh fruits and ready meals to a large extent for Woolworths being our largest customer, as well as dairy products also for Woolworths. And then we also have a very substantial puree processing plant that produces puree and products that are also used within, to a certain extent, in the rest of the group, but are also exported globally. And then we have the long life juice plant that sells under the Rhodes Quality brand throughout the country. It's our only long life juice plant in the country. And so we supply the whole of South Africa, as well as export into adjacent African countries around South Africa, and all the way up into even further countries up north beyond the countries just sitting on our border. This business has been within the RFG group and now part of Premier for the last 13 years. And it's been a highly successful business that have grown substantially over that period of time, currently doing approximately 1.5 billion rand worth of sales of the juice portfolio. And then lastly, we have the fruit product Western Cape facility in Tulbagh. That's the point of discussion for today. In total, Premier employs just under 3,000 employees in the Western Cape, of which 424 staff are employed at the Food Products Western Cape facility. And we generate total revenue of just under 7 billion rand per year from our operations in the Western Cape. And so I think Premier fully understands the importance of our business within the Western Cape economy. We are a very large employer in that space. And we certainly understand what responsibilities come with that size of operation. Just waiting for the slide to turn over. Then if I get into the actual questions or items that was posed to us, Chairperson, for this specific meeting today, the first was the rationale underlying the proposed closure of the Tulbagh facility. I think that a lot of this information has been laid out in various, through the media, through some of the statements and everything we've made, but I'm going to go in quite a lot of detail through all the various elements just to put all our points in answering this question properly on record. So following the merger completion in March 2026, it became, we were aware that the canned fruit business from Tulbagh is experiencing some difficulties in terms of the sale of the fruit products that was canned in the previous fruit season. The way the factory works is that it basically starts with apricots in November, and then it starts processing peaches in March, and it sort of finishes up with pears. And by the end of April, early part of May, the factory completely shuts down. Every single year, the fruit has been processed, and you basically have a whole warehouse full what we call bright stock. So it's basically the fruit has been processed into cans, but the cans haven't been labeled yet. And as we then globally find sales for the product through private label opportunities, through multiple grocers globally, and other uses for the product, we would then get a request for the specific labeling to be put on the can. The cans are labeled and then shipped in container loads to the overseas market. This labeling process is the only activity currently underway at the Tulbagh site as we sit there. We still have a fair amount of stock from the last canning season, as I say, and our salespeople are continuing to be engaged in selling out the stock that we have. And so as those sales come through, the teams on site will continue the labeling operation. Our teams also, at the end of the canning season, globally goes to all our customers and all potential customers. So our sales teams went on big international trips. They visited all the customers and even producers in North America, saw the whole industry in Europe, did the same in Asia and all the way into Australia and New Zealand. Basically, at the end of June, beginning of July, came back with a global picture of the global canning market, and it became clear that there's massive overcapacity international between the various large fruit-producing countries. In a country like United States that also only had 2 canning operations left, one owned by a company called Del Monte and the other one owned by a company called PCP or Pacific Canning Producers. And in America, in the last 12 months, Del Monte has filed for liquidation and has basically also ceased to exist. Its remaining stock was bought out by PCP, being the remaining cannery in America, and they continuing to market that stock to the market. Similar consolidation has taken place in where today in Australia there's only one cannery left, etc. And one can go country by country and really look at the fallout in terms of the industry. The reality is that in the United States market alone, consumption of canned fruit products have declined by almost 40% over the last decade. And so the industry has been in a long-term decline of consumption from a demand perspective as people and consumers have gained greater access all year round to fresh fruit. And so a global shift from a consumer demand perspective has been underway where people do not consume canned fruit anymore, but they rather have fresh fruit that is available globally as global supply chains have managed to bring fresh fruit from all over the world to the various countries. And on the back of all of this information, on the back of the difficulty we're currently experiencing with sales, the loss of major customers, I must state that we, in the past, America used to be quite a big market for this, for the Tulbagh facility in particular, where almost 700 container loads of canned fruit was sold into. That market has completely disappeared on the back of the 30% tariffs that was introduced by the Trump administration last year. And since then, even though those tariff regimes have changed and have been struck down, et cetera, we at this point in time are sitting in a situation where we have no prospect of being able to sell any product into the United States market. And on the basis of these and multiple data points, a complete assessment, we started to look at all sorts of different options for this facility, because it became apparent that if we were to keep it open on the status quo, that Premier would be suffering hundreds of millions of rands of losses and end up sitting with product that it manufactured for which it won't find any home and effectively will just continue to sit in warehouses. As we've stated before, 90% of the production of this facility in particular has been exported in the past. And as I said, the international market demand has really become constrained. And I think there's been a massive structural or cyclical shift, as I've said, as consumers move away from canned fruit to other formats, including fresh. Another element that have really grown in the last 4 or 5 years is that in the past, we used to export a lot of canned fruit to China in particular. And during COVID, China significantly developed their own industry, improved the quality of the product substantially, and are now at a point where they are a massive competitor globally, competing at price points that are well below what the fruit costs that we have to put that we put into the can, never mind the packaging and the processing costs. The disruption of the US market I've spoken about in terms of the liquidation of Del Monte in particular and the tariff regimes. And then lastly, over the last year in particular, the average rand exchange rate is now approached 16 rand, where we're sitting at the moment, versus an average of still around 17.50 in the prior canning season. That has also had a substantial impact on the profitability, as all international sales are in foreign currency. So from a last year's perspective, given the tariff regime and all the issues globally, the factory already cut their volumes by 25% in order to reduce the amount of fruit that they can, so that they don't sit with product that they can't find a home for. And that trend, unfortunately, has continued to accelerate and has even gotten significantly worse for this current canning season. So we were in the first time as a company and as a board in a position to get a complete enough picture of the potential fallout from the industry globally for our business if we were to can in the upcoming season. And I think that, some people have had commentary about us not giving enough notice. But I think that the reality is that we felt that as soon as it became apparent that we are in massive trouble and are looking at incredibly large-scale losses, that unfortunately we did not have the benefit of time in terms of further kicking the can down the road in this instance. From July, August perspective, the inputs for the upcoming season is usually ordered. In October, the quotas with the food producers or the farmers are finalized, and seasonal staff are starting to be brought in order to actually process the food every year. And as I said, from November to March, the bulk of the canning happens. And that's why Premier really needed to make a decision in July as to whether it's going to reopen the factory or not. And following the whole assessment that we've spoken about above, and to be honest, what we didn't put on the presentation is that we considered things like further scaling down the production. We considered various different options available to us to try and see if we can keep the factory open. And the reality is due to the nature of how it works and the different sizes of fruit that you get in and the timelines within which the fruit come off and the sensitive nature of that, it's really a situation as to whether you switch the factory on or whether you don't switch it on. There's no ability to run it at a lower cost with lower throughput. And so you incur maximum cost, and if you're not able to run the factory at its design capacity, you literally start suffering losses in terms of overhead recoveries as your volume isn't able to fully absorb all of those costs. And that's the point where we ended up in, where ultimately we believe that our market has declined to the point where we would have to run the factory at substantially low levels of utilization, perhaps even as low as 30 to 40%. Then from a Section 189 perspective, the request was around the impact on employment. As was stated here, we have 226 permanent employees employed at the plant itself. We have 20 people that are employed at the Shipping and International Commercial Department in Groot Drakenstein, being the old head office of the RFG Group. And then there are the 178 fixed-term contracts, which are the people that are ongoing, doing the labeling mostly of the bright stock that are still sitting in the factory. And that at this point in time, as we sit here, if the factory does not reopen again in November, then we will not be employing any of the usual seasonal workers that we usually contract for the 4-month fruit processing period. From a fruit producer perspective, there are 176 individual supply contracts with individual farmers. In other words, Premier is contracted individually with each farmer. It's not contracted at an industry level. In terms of those contracts, there's very specific notice periods and rights of exit for both parties. Over the years, farmers with which Premier has had contracts have declined to supply fruit for various reasons. And so many parties have over time made use of some of the exit clauses that exist within the contracts. On the back of the announcement,
for a short while.
On the back of the announcement of the 189.
Apologies, CEO.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, CEO. Can I ask the IT to mute everyone else except for the CEO, please? Can I ask that everyone that is online to be muted? Thank you. Apologies, CEO. You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No problem at all. So on the back of Premier having announced the 189 process and the potential closure or non-reopening of the facility in November, we have started to engage at various levels with the, as we call them, the Tulbagh farmers or fruit producers. We had meetings with the Inlegprodusentenvereniging, the IPV, which is the representative body of the whole industry, initially with their main committee members. Then we had another meeting with them again. Then we had an opportunity to talk to the farmers directly at the annual general meeting of the Inlegprodusentenvereniging's annual general meeting, which was approximately 3 weeks ago or so. And then on the back of that, because the IPV or the Inlegprodusentenvereniging is representative of farmers that supply to both the Tulbagh and the Langeberg factories, the Tulbagh farmers decided to form their own committee. They call it the technical committee, and they effectively now represent the 176 fruit producers that have supplied fruit in the past to the Tulbagh factory. We had a meeting with them on Friday morning at 8 o'clock. The committee members actually came up to Johannesburg and met us here at Premier's head office. And we are fully constructively engaged with that committee around how we're going to deal with the upcoming fruit harvesting season. Premier believes, and we've had multiple conversations and ongoing conversations with the Langeberg facility, and so we ultimately believe that given the demand for the product internationally, that the Langeberg facility has the capacity to can all of the fruit from a South African perspective for which we can find customers and sales in the international export market, and obviously also supply the local market with the canned fruit that gets sold here in Southern Africa. And that we also engage with the farmers in around seeking alternative products and markets for the canning fruit. Those conversations are ongoing. It's definitely gotten very constructive. Johan Kotze, the CEO of Agri SA, of which the IPV is actually a member, was also involved in the discussions. And so we certainly have the right people in the room around how to work constructively through how to deal with the upcoming fruit canning season. Alternatives that I discussed earlier or mentioned that we have considered for this year was there are opportunities to invest in significant automation. It comes at an incredibly high capital cost. To our assessment, around about 300 million rand in order to fully automate all the production lines at the Tulbagh facility. It would reduce the headcount requirement in the factory by over 80%. And so would also have quite a significant impact on jobs in the area in any event. The automation would render quite a number of cost savings, but ultimately in the current global environment, the cost savings are woefully inadequate in order to actually make the facility viable. And so at the end of the day, the combination of the high capital cost, huge job losses in any event, and still not being able to fully be competitive really didn't render that option viable. We also considered just mothballing the Tulbagh facility for a while, but as one understands, there's fruit that comes off the trees every year. It's not like a mine or a smelter or some of the other large industrial manufacturing areas in South Africa where you can switch it off for a while, and then when market conditions become more favorably, just switch it back on. It just isn't practically viable. We've considered selling the business as a going concern, and believe me that if I look at the hardship that we've gone through in the last couple of weeks since we have announced the closure of this facility, if we at all thought that there's anybody out there that would be prepared to take this facility over and continue to run it, we certainly would have done that. But the reality is that even selling it for R1, and by the way, if you look at the assets at a replacement value, you're talking at close to R1 billion in assets in a factory, and we cannot give that away for free to anybody that's prepared to take it over as a going concern. Not the farmers, not Langeberg, not any other body or anyone else that we had looked at. Every single person that have approached us or have shown interest in the facility are merely interested in an asset strip type of situation. They want us to take all the pain of closing it down, and then they'll take it over and sell off the assets and for a profit for themselves. And so we certainly don't think that that is in the best interest of anybody involved. So none of these options we viewed as viable. We will continue to engage with any interested party if someone else were to come out of the woodwork, and we continue to be happy to give them the factory for a nominal value in order to put them in the best position to make a success of it. For us as Premier, we think that from a government perspective, from a farming industry perspective, from a Premier perspective, and from a Langeberg perspective in particular, by far the best option for survival of this industry in South Africa is for Langeberg to become the sole deciduous canning factory in South Africa. They have more than enough capacity to process all the fruit for which there will be sales available internationally. We are in a position where we are able to facilitate introduction for them to all the remaining customers that we had left internationally, and make sure that they can try and sell onto the old Torbach customer base. And we are also in a position where we have quite good quality equipment within the Torbach facility, and I want to stress that not one piece of equipment has been removed from this facility as we sit here today, and no plans exist for any piece of equipment to be removed from that factory. We are not selling off the assets as we stand here, but what we have made clear is that if we want to put Langeberg and give them by far the best chance to actually survive financially, that we believe that some of the equipment in our factory would be highly beneficial to improving the throughput and the efficiencies with which they can operate, just given the state that our facility and our plant and equipment has been very well looked after and well maintained over the years. So we certainly think that all the effort to the extent possible should really start to focus on how to put Langeberg in a position to be successful and be the standard bearer for canning in South Africa, similar to what has happened in almost all countries globally that are also still remaining players within the industry. And I think from a government perspective, I'm not aware of anything specific infrastructure related, but to the extent that something can be done to assist Langeberg, they're certainly worth asking those questions. But that overall, and I know that Mr. Chairperson, you have alluded to in your upfront preamble to some of the challenges around infrastructure with the export of fresh fruit. But that's where the global consumer demand sits. It sits within the fresh fruit space. And to the extent that we can find a way to build out our infrastructure and grow our markets internationally for the quality and good taste of fruit that we have in South Africa, I think it is by far the best opportunity to try and augment the losses that we are suffering from the reduction in demand on the fruit canning side. From a Competition Commission perspective, we filed for Competition Commission approval right at very soon after we announced the transaction in the beginning of October last year. We were engaged with the Competition Commission throughout, supplied a lot of information. From the end of January, the Competition Tribunal got involved, and Premier agreed to a merger condition that prohibit merger-specific retrenchments. What the Competition Commission and the Tribunal has always been concerned about is that parties merge and that they make similar products in two different factories, and that they take those two factories, combine them into one, and that results in job losses and impact for the community. We knew from the start that we cannot agree to a blanket prohibition of retrenchments within our business, because there is all sorts of ongoing reasons why certain retrenchments and investments that one make within your business does result in the shifting of labor over time. And so to the extent that the Competition Tribunal or the Competition Commission had insisted during the process to put a blanket retrenchment prohibition, we would have walked away from the transaction and we would not have concluded the transaction. And therefore, we specifically had the carve-out where for economic failure and for operational reasons, there are very specific carve-out that allows us to effect retrenchments. And if one goes through the business case, the commercial realities, the economic environment, and the predicament where the canning industry finds itself globally, it is very obvious that Premier, before getting engaged with RFG, had no interest in the canning industry, and as a result, the closure of the Tolbach facility has nothing to do with the merger between the parties. To the extent that the merger would not have taken place and RFG would have continued to own Tolbach, they would have had to do exactly the same as what we had been going through since the predicament of this business became apparent. And so because we knew that we had this merger-specific retrenchment condition within our merger approval, before we went public with the a notice of potential closure, before we started the 189 process, before we engaged with any other party outside of Premier, we first went directly to the Competition Commission and we alerted them to the fact that that the board has taken a preliminary decision to move in this direction, and that we would like to cooperate with them proactively and constructively to give them whatever information they need in order to discharge their responsibilities within this specific merger prohibition. And so that conversation and discussion has been ongoing. The only reason the Competition Commission launched an investigation on the 14th of August was because the South African, SACTU, the Textiles Workers Union, South African Clothing and Textiles Workers Union, they lodged a formal complaint with the Competition Commission, which obliges the Competition Commission to then do a proper investigation and conclude whether they are satisfied that the potential retrenchments are not merger related. That process is ongoing, and we are actively continuing to be engaged with the Competition Commission and working with them on an ongoing basis. The consultations that we've had with stakeholders, as I've said, we've been engaged with the fruit producers since the 23rd of July. We've had the discussions with the technical committee. We've started the 189 process, which starts with a 60-day consultation and mediation process through a very experienced facilitator from the CCMA that's been allocated to the process. We're actively engaged there. Our second session at the CCMA is scheduled for next week, Tuesday. And we will continue with that process to meet all regulatory requirements, including considering whatever proposals are put to us in terms of reopening the facility. Customers and suppliers we've communicated to, including our local customers, the ShopRites, Pick n Pay, SPARs, and that's of the world, as well as all our overseas customers. And then, as I say, we've been cooperating with the Commission, and before we went public with the announcements of the potential closure, I also directly initiated a WhatsApp discussion with Premier Alan Winder on the back of being advised that he was quite involved personally in doing the transaction to keep the Langeberg facility open last year. And so we've tried from our side to be as constructive as we possibly can. We're also engaged with the Minister of Agriculture, had a session with him, and we've had interaction with the DTIC and with the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation. Well, as part of the Section 189 process, Premier is trying to accommodate as many affected employees as we can. We believe that quite a number of employees will find employment with Langeberg because they need additional people in order to process the volume on behalf of the industry, if that option were to become the final plan. We've got vacancies internal within Premier that we have already reallocated some employees in and repurposed them within a Premier environment. and obviously we're not going to be able to accommodate all employees. And so if the process takes its natural course and we do end up with the retrenchment process through Section 189, then the generous retrenchment packages will be offered to all the remaining employees. We have communicated with the fruit producers that we are working with Langeberg to process as much of their fruit. We're going to put almost 10,000 tons of fruit through our pulping and puree facility at Grootdrakenstein. We are looking for every single avenue that we can for the fruit to find a home. And to the extent that farmers are out of pocket in any event vis-a-vis our contractual obligations in terms of the 178 contracts that we got, we have already indicated that we will make cash compensation to the farming community to compensate them for the loss of income for this canning season. And then lastly, I think it's very important that we have also stated to the fruit producers or the farmers that we are not putting the Tolbach facility imminently up for sale. There's 240 hectares of fertile land that is owned by that facility. There's a whole factory building, and that to the extent that we get viable alternative proposals around how to repurpose that facility to process products, like for instance, become a fresh fruit packing facility, rather than doing canning, we will certainly make that facility available at no compensation in order to try and mitigate the fallout from the closure of the canning operation. That, Mr. Chairperson, is the end of our formal presentation, where we've tried to answer the questions and the information requests that was put to us. And I will now hand the speaker back to you, sir.
Thank you, CEO. I do not know if your colleagues want to add anything that you might have left.
No, Chairperson, not at this stage.
No, thanks, Mr. Chair. It's included in the presentation.
Okay. Thank you. With that said, honourable members, there's the presentation from Premier Foods. I am going to hand over to you for questioning. CEO, we will definitely request the presentation. We don't have the presentation. It might also make it difficult to kind of engage, but if you are able to share it with Shireen, and then she will make it available to us, and then members can use it as a source of reference when they ask questions. I see the hand of Honourable Bryant. Are there other members that have got questions? I see 3 hands. In that order, Honourable Bryant, Khalil Brent-Hayes, and Honourable Nkontlo. Over to you, members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My apologies for not turning on my camera. I'm having a bit of a challenge with my device, so if you'll bear with me. But thank you very much to Premier Foods for the presentation. I think there was quite a lot of information contained in there, contextual information, which I think sets the scene, which perhaps we didn't have access to in the first presentation. And I think it really does explain some of the challenges that are facing South Africa, I think, in terms of the global context when it comes to trade. Obviously, our prime concern is for the jobs and the livelihoods of the people currently working at that facility and in the surrounding community. Although it does appear that there is quite a detailed and perhaps quite a complex plan already in place to at least address some of those challenges, which appear to be somewhat inevitable. Chair, I think the core of the presentation addressed many of the questions that I I would have had. I suppose my only real question directly to Premier Foods would be in terms of the interaction thus far with the Western Cape government. I know they have mentioned some of the interactions. We have heard in our most recent meeting that there were extensive discussions between Westgrow and the department and Premier Foods. And if they can maybe just elaborate from their side as to how those meetings went, and if they feel that all avenues had been explored in terms of that cooperation. That's obviously notwithstanding the direct meetings that have been had with the Premier. Yes, I know this matter will also be debated in the House on Thursday as a political debate. But I think for now, in terms of questions of clarity, those are mine. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Bryant. Honourable members, we are a multi-party committee. Here we just deal with the presentation. What happens in the House stays in the House. Here, as a multi-party committee, let's just focus on the presentation and clarity-seeking questions. Over to you, Honourable Khalil Brengate.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for the a very comprehensive, I must say, presentation. Chair, yes, many of the issues that in the previous meeting that we actually wanted to highlight has been addressed here today. I would like to focus on one, and the presentation does cover it to a certain extent. That is the priority for me currently, and it is the livelihoods at stake here. Now, the presentation covers the issue of looking for alternative ways in saving these livelihoods. But I'm just going to ask a very simple question now, and I would like also a very precise answer or indication to where we actually stand with these livelihoods of the people of Tulbagh. And I want to get an answer from Premier Foods that in terms of the livelihoods that they can facilitate at the moment, alternative ways to facilitate these livelihoods and employ these people. How much of the people whose livelihoods are affected? For example, if there is 3,000 people whose livelihoods are affected by this situation now, how much of those 3,000 people can Premier Foods indicate now can they accommodate? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. CEO, I'm going to take the next question, if that is okay with you, CEO. And then you can provide with the answers after the last question. Is that okay?
That's good.
Honourable Nkondlo, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the CEO of Premier Foods for the presentation. I want to just understand from the Premier Foods one that at a time that Premier Foods was launching the merger application with the Competition Commission as it was concluded in March. This particular market dynamic around the dropping of the market demand of processed and canned fruit versus fresh fruit, was it something that was not, they were not aware as a company? at the time they started with the merger engagement or merger application at the Competition Commission level. The second one is, I hear the CEO saying they would want to keep the Tulbagh factory to actually help the Langeberg one. And I just want him to explain to us in terms of business model and ownership, what is the relationship of Premier Foods with the Langeberg factory? And my last one, Chair, on this round is just to understand from the CEO, given the extensive explanation of the work that they're doing, engaging with the farm producers, what engagements have they had with their workers? And when did they start engaging their workers to share with them the potential closure, the challenges that they are facing, as they have explained to us now? When did they start to bring those to the attention of the workers in the factory? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngondlo. CEO, I'm going to sponsor mine because I don't think you have got lots of questions to deal with. I've got a couple of them from my side. So I think the first one that I would like to know from you, CEO, is that obviously, you know, before the purchase of any business, you do your due diligence. And I think the question is, what was the due diligence looking like at the time? If you may really just share with the members, you know, did you see the signs of business not being able to make it in the next couple of months? And how long did it take from the due diligence to really transaction being realized? Yeah, in terms of your observation of the changes that might have happened, you know, afterwards. The second part of my question really relates to, I don't know if you will be able to provide us, but economic activities as a result of the existence of the Premier Foods processing plant. What is the kind of economy that we are talking of in terms of rents and cents, if you are able to? I'm talking now here, you know, suppliers and obviously you supply the livelihoods that have been mentioned, but I think there are other, you know, through the value chain, you know, the people that will be affected by this, the businesses that will be affected by this in terms of your regular supplies. You've spoken about the farmers having formed and having formed their own technical committee and also having attended the annual general meeting at the Farmers Union meeting, and that they have also traveled to see you in Johannesburg. So in terms of this farmer group, were they a representative of all the affected farmers, or were partly those that feels that they needed to engage? And you also contracting some individually. Were they also part of this, or did they opt out because maybe, I mean, as you indicated that they individually contracted, and obviously this gave them an opportunity to opt out of the contracts. You spoke also about the cash payouts for some of these farmers that you might have to settle. Have you determined in terms of the number of farmers that you might be going into that option? And if so, have the conversation started with those farmers around that particular cash opt-out as such? Yeah. So those are the questions for me for now. I know that there are many, but you are assisted by former CEO and everybody else. I do have some follow-up as well a little bit later. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, and to the committee members for their questions. I'm going to try and answer some of the questions according to timelines to give a little bit of a better perspective, perhaps, and try and get to most of the questions in that manner. There was a question around when we became aware of the potential problems at the Tulbagh facility. Now, if one looks at the way these big transactions work in the listed environment, Premier concluded and finalized and finished and had to certify to the RFG Foods board that it was happy with the due diligence that it had done by the end of September last year. Now, that at that point in time, we still had just come off a year where the factory had the benefit of a couple of structural things. For instance, one of them was a much weaker rand exchange rate, and also had the benefit of some drought in a couple of overseas markets that had also contributed to not creating the same level of supply and demand dynamics that we find ourselves in now. And so the answer is that yes, Premier thought that it wasn't a great business as part of the RFG portfolio, but we thought that it's a cyclical business. It goes through tougher times and then better times, and it has shown that over a 20-year period. And we felt that we had reasonable expectation that the business should at least be able to eke out a profit or not make losses and get to a break-even point. As the merger transaction progressed and the lengthy timelines that it takes to obtain merger approval, which in this case was the better part of 5 months, and all the other regulatory processes finish. By the time the deal was consummated in March, things had already started to look worse than what it was in September, but we were way beyond the point where we at that point in time could stop any process. And we still felt that yes, things are looking difficult, but we're comfortable that we think the business can still at least not make losses, but get to a break-even point. As time progressed from there, and sales started falling away, as we started losing export markets, as price points started to come under pressure, as the rand exchange rate went to 16 rand and even 15 rand 50 at some point during the sales season, the profitability of the business went back substantially. And so there was no pre-concluded decision prior to the merger that we would close this facility. This was I think we had all been caught off guard by the velocity at which this business went backwards and by the tempo at which international sales had dropped, margins had disappeared, volumes had disappeared, and the financial prospects of this business had deteriorated significantly. I guess one can lay it in front of our door to say, well, maybe if one had gone through to the nth degree and had traveled yourself globally and had gone to all of these countries ourselves as part of the due diligence, maybe we would have had a better understanding of how bad the situation might be. But the reality is, whether Premier did the deal or whether RFG remained a standalone basis, the outcome for this factory would have been no different. It would have been exactly the same. And so the merger ultimately is an easy point or area to attack us on and to come at us, because the answers that we are giving in terms of the viability of the factory is unpleasant and isn't the outcome that people are looking for. But the reality is we didn't know or take any decision or had any idea that we would find ourselves in this bigger predicament a few months after we had concluded the merger. I think there were two questions that both, and I tried to answer both of those at the same time. There was a question about the fruit producers and whether we're representing all, the technical committee represents all 178. Yes, our understanding, and we have been told that the technical committee represents all farmers in all 178 farmers that supplied fruit under contract to the Tulbagh facility. We also, I also want to stress that around the monetary compensation or the cash compensation, it is impossible at this point in time to determine the exact amounts or the outcome or know what's going to happen at a farmer-to-farmer level. As the season progresses from here, the farmers only commit in terms of the tonnages of fruit that they think they might have available towards the end of October. It's only then that one starts to form a view. One will have to then work through the season, see what fruit goes where, how much goes to Langeberg, how much goes into dried fruit, whether some fruit can go into fresh fruit, how much goes into pulp and puree, and what are the realizations that we can get on the pulps and puree product by selling that internationally. And so we will only be in a position to reconcile each individual farmer's contract by the end of March next year, and then sit down with each farmer and say, well, this is the fruit you had contracted to us. This is what happened to the fruit. This is a shortfall that you have had, and therefore our amount of money that we owe you in cash compensation is X. So that is the process that we will follow between now and the end of March, really to secure that part.
Of course, maybe then just to pick up on one of the two of the others, I think there was a question if there's a relationship between us and Langeberg, and I think we can categorically clarify that there's no ownership or no relationship, two separate entities, hitherto competitors and still currently competing. I guess per our view, we believe that for the Western Cape and for the industry to survive in South Africa, we should look to help them create this national champion business. And that's where we're trying to cooperate with them post our exit as to what we can do to support.
But I think we need to clarify, Rolf, that neither beforehand, as we sit here, do we have any involvement whatsoever with Langeberg. And irrespective of what equipment or what we do from here on in, we will never have an interest in Langeberg. So Premier is not ever going to be a shareholder or in any way whatsoever directly involved with Langeberg. Whatever we do to support Langeberg will be to provide them with the best chance of survival, but we are not involved with the fruit canning industry ever again. Premier, if the current status quo holds and we don't find a way to reopen this factory, Premier will completely exit the fruit canning, the deciduous fruit canning industry. We will not, we will sell out the Rhodes canned products on shelf. Peaches, pears, apricots, mixed fruit cocktail, and we will cease to exist from a product perspective in South Africa. So we will have no interest or any involvement ever with Langeberg.
And then I think there was a further question just on our engagements with the workforce at Tulbagh. Peter, you can probably comment, but I think as to pre-deal, but certainly post-merger, I think all the employees have been kept up to date with the state of affairs. I mean, a lot of the feedback is the employee feedback. The sales teams were the ones going on a number of international visits to customers and compiling their reports, giving their feedback. So they've been involved along the way, involved in various initiatives to say, look, what could be done to make the business sustainable, to reduce costs? What are the options? So they've been involved in various processes. And then obviously once the preliminary decision was taken towards the back end of July by the Premier Board, then they were communicated with more formally before the Section 189 was launched. The notice served at the end of July.
Yeah. And I think that I want to add on there that quite a large proportion of the employees that are subject to the 189 process has got quite lengthy service years. And so the potential retrenchment packages that they are looking at is quite substantial. And so we have reasonable expectation that a number of employees will have opportunities for alternative employment, but they cannot pursue that until such time as they have received the payout from Premier, because it's only fair that they get that. And so from our perspective, we are trying to meet all the requirements of the facilitated mediation process, but we also recognize that a lot of our employees are in a position where they are sitting and waiting for the quite substantial payout that they're going to get, and will only be able to really go and find alternative opportunities for employment once they have gone through and finalized that process.
Yeah. And then I think the last question that was touched on a couple of points, including yourselves, Mr. Chair, was, the broader economic assessment of the livelihoods in Tulbagh and that. And I think, I think that's not something we're well positioned to have done. We're not exactly aware. I mean, obviously, they're the obvious people affected, our staff and our suppliers, the producers. Those are the people we're engaged with at the front line. But we've got no real way of determining exactly beyond that on any factual basis of the impact in Tulbagh or the surrounding area. So we haven't done economic assessments or anything like that we can share with you.
Yeah, I think the only other major supplier of this facility, other than the fruit and the labor, is the cans. That's traditionally been made by Nampak. And I think that we have a very reasonable expectation that if Langeberg is successful in being the standard bearer of the industry, that a very large portion of the cans that would have been utilized by the Tulbagh facility will in any event be utilized by the Langeberg facility. And hence, we don't think that will be too detrimental to the canning supplier. And then from a technical perspective, we have equipment that we are renting from an overseas company called Atlas. Obviously, we are working with them to try and see how we can conclude that contract, but that doesn't have any local implications. In actual fact, it's a payments that we make to an offshore provider. And then there's technical support provided by Molinar in Worcester, but they are a very large equipment supplier, and they would be required to do quite substantial work to support Langeberg in any event. And so I think the fallout from that perspective will be very limited. So I really do think from an overall supplier base that we are mostly concerning ourselves with the food producers and with the employees.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that, Mr. Chairperson, we believe we've answered most of the questions that were posed to us. If we've missed one, by all means, we'd be happy to circle back to that.
Honourable members, I've got follow-up questions. I do not know if there are any other follow-ups from your side. So I think from my side, CEO, we are definitely concerned with the decisions that you have made. And in any way, we are not really trying to interfere with the commercial decisions that you want to make. But I think my question is, I mean, you've got the period that the factory is not really operational, and November is the busy time, it's operational, and it's producing. It's not that it's just operational, it's going to be producing. The question is, maybe, it's two-pronged. Why so rushed to really come and finish this process so quick instead of finishing the harvest and post the harvest, start your process? And obviously everyone has got sufficient time to make their decision. And when I say, every time, I mean, including the farmers that are really producing. And maybe the second part to that question is, what are the, I mean, you're welcome to share, but if you don't want to share, we will understand. What are the costs during, call it a resting period of your factory and during the operating period? Where are most of your costs lying? And I would assume that they're lying during the during the activities. And obviously, you're also, producing and you make income, and then obviously you are earning as such. So the question is, can't you just maybe, give, all your stakeholders that you are engaging enough time to really also, sort themselves out? Because I think you are not also very clear about what is the kind of cash payout that you're going to make to the farmers, because they are also concerned, because there's also, kind of a lot of livelihood that is involved here. So I think the primary question is, why must it happen so quick? And I made notes here. You said if, and when you went to slide number 5, you said you mentioned some of the steps that you've taken. But in the beginning, I thought maybe, with all the engagements that you are having, you have halted, the section 189 and all those, things that you have mentioned. And also, asking now to understand as to how many exactly, employees are affected by this. One could not really get a clear answer. You did say that most are the ones that are have got a long tenure. But I was just thinking that, as the government of the Western Cape, got themselves involved with Langeberg, and then they managed to get, alternative solution. Is there not an opportunity that maybe you just maybe slow down a little bit and engage, explore, some of the engagement, and really make sure that that you have exhausted all this kind of engagements? Because I think you are still at a very preliminary stage, but already, it seems as if, you want to cut and close and finish and move on. And I want to understand that these are commercial decisions, But I mean, as a committee, we've got responsibility, obviously, towards the community that we need to report back on these matters. I see 3 hands from honourable members that follow up. In the order, Honourable Bryant, Honourable Ngondlo, and Honourable Brinkes. Over to you, colleagues.
So, Chair, mine was just in terms of the question I asked around the engagement with Westgro and the department, and whether or not Premier was happy, and if they felt that all those avenues had been exhausted, in terms of what we've been informed of quite extensive discussions. Thanks.
Yeah, let me respond to that. So we, Chairperson, through Mr. Chair.
Sorry, can we take all the questions, and then you can answer after all the questions have been posed? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Honourable Ngondlo. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the CEO for the responses. I think the CEO should, I think, should understand that partly, the anxiety of everybody indeed is about what you have just referred to, Chair. Is the abruptness of the decision. Because if you say you entered into the merger, which at most sometimes mergers about, expansion of the business footprint, about seeing a new opportunity and the likes to sort of save the business and create more of a lifeline for any business, So as you said, you would never have foresaw, this challenges of the market demand that have actually taken a huge chunk leading to the closure of the factory. I think that is one issue that is actually creating the anxiety, is the shock in the system, because at most, big operations of this nature that have got a serious impact in the broader economy, at least people would have foresawn it, you bring everybody, there are discussions, and even the workers, as you say, those that are directly affected can actually foresee these particular challenges. I think this is one of the an area that makes everybody, uneasy. I mean, just to say, in the knowing Witzenberg as a small municipality, this particular plant was playing a very big sort of economic a role within that particular space, let alone other businesses like transport businesses that are bringing people into the factory, and many others that may not even be directly related to the operations of the business. So it is those realities that actually made all of us to be interested and keen without, as the chair said, having to impose on the commercial decisions, but to just understand. And I want to ask again this question because the CEO kept on saying, if, so I'm trying to understand, is there any other option to rescue the factory? The CEO said there's nobody that has came to date with any proposition, to take over the factory. So I'm asking, is there, from where you are sitting, actually you were indicating, Chairperson, in your remarks that actually a big market in Africa that Premier Foods was not even there, and I'm not sure whether in terms of that market, the same observation is the same around demand of fresh produce versus canned. So I'm trying to understand that, is there any other option of saving this factory from where you are sitting as you are engaging with the board and with the shareholders? And also, Chair, I'm interested to understand from the CEO again that given the experience of Tiger Brands, and I think in the other factory, would Premier consider an investment into a community trust, if all else, as the part of this process of closing out this factory, of ensuring that those communities that are affected, there is something that would actually enable them going forward? And I'm asking this question as part of, an option versus, no other option but to close. And lastly, Chair, we understand that the engagements are still continuing. Will the company allow a situation where the workers, but also engage the communities that are affected, actually in where the factory is now, in Tulba? You've got people in Saron, you've got people in Worsley, whose families are affected directly by the closure of the factory. And this is a factory that has been there for years. So would this be something that they would consider, to engage those communities as part of stakeholder engagement about the decision that the factory, the business had to take, which has got a direct impact not only on those workers, but to households who are actually affected, by the decision of Premier Foods? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngoto. Over to you, Honorable Brengges.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, to the CEO, they've indicated that they first have to do an economic assessment. My first question is, do they have any economic expertise, people like economists in-house? And if they do have, could they please give us a timeline on when such an economic assessment could be concluded? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. CEO, I think maybe when I said government, just to add, we're talking here the DTICs and the IDC of this world in terms of really being able to maybe package something that could really save the company. If also you might have engaged them, please share and be open with the committee and share with us. Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Chairperson. I've listened to the request from the chairperson and from the honourable members of the committee. The reality is that the product is obsolete. I didn't make it obsolete. Rose Food Group didn't make it obsolete. Nobody made it obsolete other than consumers that are voting with their money to buy alternative products. And we can can fruit until the cows come home this year, and we can jump up and down and be unhappy about the fact that consumers are not buying the product. What Premier will not do is we will not manufacture a product that is going to sit in a warehouse with no market to go to and no one to sell it to. That is absolute madness. And Premier, if we go through this season, will lose 250 to 300 million rand on this canning season, and we would have solved not a single problem. We wouldn't have created anything to make the fallout for the community, the fallout for the workers, the fallout for the suppliers. We would have done absolutely nothing to improve anything. That is the unfortunate situation that we are facing ourselves. And we can say that, no, we need a longer time. You can point to Langeberg and Tiger being involved. Tiger had the benefit of a weak exchange rate, a failure of peach crop in Greece, and a whole bunch of other structural issues that bailed them out and stopped them from making losses prior to them doing the deal. The one thing I can guarantee this committee today is that if we keep the Tolbach factory open for this canning season, then this time next year, Langeberg will be bankrupt. They will go under. They are not going to make it financially. That is an absolute fact. And we can wish it away, and we can throw the communities and everybody else into the pot here, but it will not change the unfortunate, sad economic reality of what we are dealing with here. We ran scenarios where we looked at if we halve the price that we pay farmers for the fruit, if we go to Nampak and we say to them, we want a 30% reduction on the cost of the cans. If we go to Labour and we say we're going to move every single person that works at the factories pay to minimum wage, 30 Rand an hour. If we do all of that, our losses would be 200 million instead of 300 million Rand. We would have won nothing. And we can come and we can make Premier the bad guy. We can make Premier the scapegoat. We can blame the Competition Commission. We can blame bad corporate citizenship. We can do whatever we want. The reality is not going to change. And unless we start focusing this level of energy that I'm feeling in this meeting on trying to create alternative options and make sure Langeberg makes it, the whole industry is going to be completely decimated. That is clear to me. I don't take rash overnight decisions like this when we haven't done a detailed work, detailed assessments, had people involved from all aspects that could consider every single viable option. I have built Premier over 15 years. I employ 13,500 other people. I've spent 6 billion Rand building factories in this country, not Tiger Brands, not AVI, not RCL, not any other food producer in this country has even come close to the extent of the investments that Premier have made in the future of this country. And I do not take decisions like this lightly. I have
CEO, I've got a point of order. What's the point of order, Honorable Nkontla?
Chair, I would like for you to plead with the CEO with the humility that this committee has came to ask for information. Let's really keep it in that sense. I may understand the frustration of the CEO in the questions that may be uncomfortable. All we are asking is for information. So I'm just wanting for you to please indulge the CEO to, I think, reduce and still engage with us as part of the stakeholders. I just think the language he is getting into is really very combative and it's unnecessary.
Thank you, Honorable Ngontlo. I also wanted to raise that point of order. CEO, I think we are here engaging and we are asking questions that we don't have answer to. And we really want you to indulge with us and just try to be brief and answer those questions in a way that members can walk away here understanding exactly what is really happening. If you can really stick to the question and the answers, the questions that you can answer, we are not really trying to look for something else. We're looking for answers so that we are able to, when we conclude this meeting, we are able to make proper recommendation. We are a parliament and we make recommendation to the executive. So upon this engagement, we will be presenting the report, obviously the resolutions from this committee to the executive. And if, as Honorable Bryant indicated, that we will be debating in the House and members will be making some resolution in the House as to what they recommend to the Premier. And that's why we are asking these questions, as difficult as they are, to say, could you have hold on just a little while to just look at all the kinds of solutions on the table to solve this matter? You did indicate now that you have got a problem that you're going to produce that are going to be obsolete. So we just ask you to just stick to the answers that the members have asked, the questions that the members have asked about, and then we can do follow up and you can provide all those other answers that you want to provide. Over to you to conclude with your answers, CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I mean, the questions were quite broad and they were asked as to why we can't keep the factory open for another year. And unfortunately, that is a very wide-bearing question, and I don't know how else to answer it other than the way that I did. I'm trying to be as frank as I can, and I'm trying to put the facts on the table. I certainly haven't used any improper language at all. I have just made my points. But the reality is that Honourable Bryant have also asked around the involvement with the Department of Economic Development. And yes, we have had interaction with them. We had a session that also included the mayor of Witzenberg. And quite frankly, the interaction that we had at that level was very constructive, fully understanding what the predicament is and understanding what we are trying to do to try and mitigate the fallout from these unfortunate circumstances. So we feel it was constructive engagement, and we feel that the people that were presented to us as being representative of really understanding what's going on in the industry fully understood why the decisions were made and why we were going down this route.
Perhaps I could just add, just specifically on Westro, IDC, DTI. Look, we are engaged with all the parties to date. Whilst we've had several conversations, explored in detail, much like today, the rationale, the implications, the consequences. There haven't been any ideas or alternative proposals put on the table for us to consider. The only one is, Mr. Chair, I guess the question you're raising of why don't you keep it open for a while, for longer? But I think as Cobus has tried to explain, the financial consequences of that make that an untenable position for us and our stakeholders, and that's why that isn't a realistic option for us to pursue. But we continue our engagement with the IDC, with the DTI, to see if there are alternatives. But I think, as we've also tried to explain here, and not that we have perfect vision on this, but all the work we've done points to the best solution is to create this national champion in the form of Langeberg and give them the tools for success. That's the best for all stakeholders as we can see it. And then I guess that's a point for disagreement or discussion, but that's what our analysis points to. I think maybe if the other points just to pick up on, I just want to clear up any confusion. We don't have any economists in house, and quite, we up until this point we weren't considering doing a broader economic analysis of all the supply chain effects of this decision. We believe our responsibility and our focus is on our direct stakeholders that we need to sort out, and we're trying as best we can to be fair to all parties and to certainly act in line with all agreements, all legislation, and with our spirit of fairness for all the stakeholders that we can. But ultimately, we also need to be fair to some of our other stakeholders, being shareholders, other employees, and balance out their objectives with what we can do here. And we don't have infinite resources to make things good for everyone. So there are necessarily trade-offs involved here as we go through it. I don't know if I think we've covered the alternatives, the Westgrow, why are we acting now? And I think that's also why we laid out for you the seasonality and the effects of the business. This business has its own unique flow that it's not running the whole year, as Chris explained on one of the slides. We're into these seasons, and actually we put on ourselves to make a decision so that we could give people as much time as possible and balance out us doing our own work. And those of you who've been involved in this would have heard the term of a 100-day review, which is essentially what happened from March up until the end of June. That was the period we analysed all the information. It fitted in with when decisions needed to be made for this business in terms of restarting the factory. And we've tried to give workers and stakeholders and everyone as much notice as possible so that people can be informed and take what decisions they need to take. But hopefully that's covered all the follow-up questions, Mr. Chair.
To the Chair, maybe just a comment from my side as well with regards to a question of why now. We've spoken a lot about the market, and that's unfortunately one of the most important factors also within the decision. If you look at products, if we pack the season, inevitably you're going to sit with those additional stock in your system, and where it will just deteriorate to exactly what Cobus has said, to next year, that both factories will look at each other. Of course, they will both be subscale for this season. And that's why it's so critically important for us to ensure that we execute on supporting Langeberg as quickly as we can. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. I was looking forward to hearing from you because you've been very quiet. So, colleagues, I think we have exhausted the engagement. But I think one of the things maybe before we really conclude is, Cobus, you have been the former CEO. What is the level of the amount of cans that have been absolute in terms of rand value in the last couple of years? What has been the losses looking like? You mind sharing?
The rand losses that we've made in the business.
Yeah, I'm just saying last 3 years. Last 3 years, maybe.
In the last canning season, in other words, the 25-26 canning season, we've made just over 150 million rand loss. That is projected to go to around about 280 million in the next canning season. And the year before the last canning season, the business made an 80 million rand profit.
Yes. Chair, yes, Chair, I can confirm those numbers that Cobus has recently said. I can also refer through the Chair, if you just look at our analyst presentations that the old roads had to do up at the end of November, beginning of December, there we specifically made mention of the challenging year for our segment. Obviously, the oversupply in international markets resulting in the softer prices, as well as the strengthening of the rand. So there were certain issues at that stage which we did have, and we just concluded also by saying and mentioning that with regards to the outlook, that we foresee that there will be continuous pressure on volumes and pricing. So those comments were made, but the numbers that Cobus has referred to are correct, Chair.
So are you reading from the financials of the 25-26 or 26 and 24-25?
Yes, Chair, I'm referring to the analyst presentations. That's public information that we did at the end of November, beginning December. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. I see you've got opportunity, honorable members, for the last round, and then we can excuse Premier Foods. I see the hand of Honorable Bryant.
Thanks, Chair. It's less of a question, probably more just a statement. I mean, I know the situation is obviously not ideal, and as we've mentioned, there are numerous factors, including international trade tariffs and others, which are far beyond the control of any of us. I think it's just important for us, I suppose, at the same time as we are acknowledging the challenges being faced by the current employees, which is certainly a huge issue for us. Also to at the same time recognize, how valuable the involvement of Premier has been, and the private sector in general. And it's certainly something that we want to keep facilitating through the work with Wesgro and the department to continue building those partnerships. I think the last thing we'd want to do is in any way endanger those going forward. But we look forward to the next chapter from my side. Thank you, Chair. It's just a statement. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable Brenkes.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Chair, as government, we have functions in our government, in our provincial legislators, known as disaster management. So we budget for disasters. I'm not calling this a disaster, what Premier Foods is in at the moment, but at least it's a crisis. Can Premier Foods indicate how much preparations in their professional outfit have they made for this current crisis over the years? Because at least as government, we can say that we have a disaster management budget. We budget for things like that, for disasters. As Premier Foods budgeted for this situation that we are in at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable Gonzo, can you put your camera off? We seem to be seeing so many things at the background. Wherever you are. Can somebody, IT assist, in switching that camera off? Over to you, CO.
Mr. Chair, as we stated, we took 150 million rand loss in the last canning season. That is effectively money that was out of our pocket. And we believe that the final cost to fully exit in terms of retrenchments, in terms of payments to farmers, and in terms of supporting the workers and everybody could probably run somewhere between 100 and 200 million rand for us to exit and support Langeberg. So we certainly don't have a specific amount in that we've budgeted. We're going to do what we need to do to who we feel we're obliged to support. And we've got contractual obligations, we've got supplier contractual obligations, farmers, we've got workers payouts to make, and we will do what we need to do in order to satisfy ourselves that we've done our part in terms of what's required of us. But it's certainly substantial amounts, but as you can see, the amounts that are involved in terms of sorting out the various constituencies is significantly less than the ongoing losses that we will suffer in the business if we were to keep it open.
Thank you, members. We come to the end of the discussion. Before I do my closing remarks, I just want to hear if the HOD or Mr. Dingani want to make a remark before we close. HOD, Mr. Dingani.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think we've listened very carefully. We've had a number of engagements with Premier before, one as the CEO had signaled, with the municipality of Witzenberg and the mayor. The second was with DTIC. And now we've also listened very carefully, and obviously there's constantly, as one has engagements, more information that's coming through. The key thing for us is time. And so the one thing we would like to obtain from Premier, based on the presentation that was done today, is a commitment that the factory will be kept intact until an alternative investor is found. Because you don't want to go through the time and the effort to try and find an alternative investor, only to find that there's nothing to essentially invest in. So that's what I heard from the CEO, is the commitment that they would keep the factory intact with all its assets until we could find an alternative investor. Thank you very much, Chair. But thank you very much for what has been a very insightful engagement and discussion.
And thank you to you, HOD, for attending and for following the discussion. Govers, Mr. Kettenbach, really thank you very much for your patience. Members do become quite passionate about these topics because they represent the lived realities on the ground. You know, we have got constituencies and we have got a different lived experience. And when we come here to represent them. And it's very important that we ask difficult questions, but we are not by any means trying to undermine the work that you are doing. We really appreciate, as Honorable Brian, which indicates that we appreciate the role that you play in the broader economy. And really, we play a very, very critical role. Our rural economy is under severe pressure, as you are well aware. We're coming from load shedding to disasters that we have just had in this part of the world. And hence, it is important for us to have this kind of conversation. This is a multi-party committee. We are not here to represent and wear our different hats, but we are here to really do the parliament work so that we can report to the speaker with regards to the work that we are doing for the community, because they come through the speaker to complain about these matters, and the speaker has this matter to the committee to engage with the relevant stakeholders to ensure that we are able to report back to parliament and assist, obviously, the government in terms of our recommendation from the observatory, from the engagement. Really, from our side, just on behalf of the members, I want to say thank you. Thank you really very much for your time. It's a short notice. We appreciate that you could respond so fast to you, Doris. Thank you very much. And Mr. Hartman, thank you to you. And Peter, thank you for holding the tape for very long. And you are the institution yourself, I'm sure. You know that place in and out. And let's hope that, the government will be able to assist in terms of finding an alternative investor. With those words said, thank you really to you. CEO, if you want to make a closing remark, over to you, and then you can be excused.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to the committee today. We appreciate the time that the committee has taken to give us insight into what the challenges and the information that there are. We will, as requested, we will make the presentation available to the committee for reference. And if there were to be any further follow-up or anything else that we can do to assist, in any way whatsoever, we are just a phone call away. So by all means, push on our button if we can help any further. But thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And one thing that you can do, maybe, Peter, you can send us the link so that we can get to the financials of the financial reporting, so that we only do our analysis, we are able to reflect. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are welcome to lead the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Honorable members, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is our documents for consideration. Before I also we go into the documents for adoption as such, I must also say, honorable members, that our procedural officer, Sharon Niger, can you put your camera on, please?
Gee, today of all days, but I'll do that.
Yeah, our procedural officer is now occupying a new position as the senior procedural officer as from today. I just want to say really congratulations and thank you for really the hard work and the service that you have really provided me, especially as the chairperson, coming as green as I was, in this portfolio. It wasn't easy. You held me, throughout. Really, thank you very much. I really appreciate you. And we are going to miss you, but I'm sure we'll meet you in the corridor, in the passage. And really, yeah, as we go through the last lap of your participation in our committee, really, I just want to say we appreciate you, we value you. You really played a significant role. And I think all of us, we were new in this role and you helped us, you were very patient with us. Really, thank you very much. The 1st of September, I will now, from tomorrow on, I'll say senior procedural officer, and apologies for saying procedural officer today, but from now onwards, I'll remember the title, the prefix. Yeah. Honorable members. Yeah, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to you for those kind words, and to the committee members as well. Some of the members I've known for quite a few parliamentary terms, and it has been an honor and a privilege to work with you and alongside you, and to make a small difference in the lives of the citizens of the Western Cape. But I'm not going too far, Chairperson. I think I will still be attached somehow to Member Van Wyk and a couple of the other members, because I will be overseeing the Cluster C committees. But it has been an honor. Thank you so much for your support and kindness. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I thought, honorable members, I need to do this. Otherwise, once we're done with the documents, members want to be excused. So, yeah. So, honorable members, we move now to the next part of this discussion, which is obviously the documents that we need, the reports that we need to consider. But, honorable members, it will be a miss of me. I've seen somebody here online that I know, Pet Maran, the previous Honorable Pet Maran. Greetings, Pet Maran. I do know you from the industry as such. Yeah, thank you for your interest in our committees too. And you were also an honorable member at some point. Greetings to you.
Okay.
Honorable, yeah.
I'm just saying thanks and greetings to everyone. I'm so glad I've tuned in, also to now know that Serene has become a senior procedural officer. What an achievement. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable, let me keep it honorable. You're still honorable. Honorable members, the minutes of the 12th of August before us. If you can just scroll down, Shireen. We had the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. They provided us with a brief on Westgro's funding requirements. Can I see a hand for a proposal? Honorable Khalil, are you proposing for the adoption of the minutes?
Chair, my hand was up before we started with the minutes.
Oh, apologies. Yeah.
No, Chair, if it's through you, Chair, from my side, I also want to congratulate Shireen for achievement. And if it's Chair, can I continue through you, Chair?
Can we finish with the minutes and then we can come? Just remind me before we finish off with our meeting, and then we can come.
In order, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Can I get a proposal? Honorable Brenges,
I propose. Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Seconder. Honorable Mare, are you still in the meeting? Honorable Bryant, are you still in the meeting?
More than happy to second.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shireen. We can go to the next document. This was the minutes of the meeting of the 25th of August, 2026, which was also online. This was dated briefing us about Premier Foods factory closure. Can I have a proposal? Honorable Mare, you were with us here. Honorable Brian,
yes,
thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Are you seconding?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I was
Thank you
present
very
in this meeting.
I know. Thank you, Honorable Brian. Thank you, Honorable Mare. Is that all?
Those are all the committee documents, Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable members, now we come to the resolutions from this meeting with Premier Foods. Any recommendations? Aline?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously, Chair, we got a better assessment now from from Premier Foods. Yeah, from my side, let's see what we can do to help the community of Tulbagh in approaching investors, possible investors, and taking them there to Premier Foods. That is my resolution. So, if we could possibly, as a committee, go there as soon ASAP, maybe even in the new year, and while we waiting on that oversight, we can, in the meantime, look for possible investors, because I'm speaking from my side now. The whole Western Cape province is my constituents, and the community of Tulbagh, they are obviously waiting on answers. So we need to provide that answers to that to the community of Tulbagh. And what better way in assisting to save that operation there of Premier Foods with a possible investor. So yes, Chair, let's do an oversight there as soon as we can. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Honorable Brinkes, I really welcome your enthusiasm around this, but I think let's also not blare the the roles and responsibilities of us as members of parliament. Ours is to really ensure that we do a proper oversight. And maybe we must just make a recommendation to the department to see if they can assist in terms of finding an alternative investors, so that, you know, we are able to really provide proper oversight over the department's work around that. And obviously we've got programs within the department that are focused on investor attraction through Westgrow and other areas of the ministry that they're working on that. Will that be in order if we convert that into a recommendation that the Westgrow and the Department of Economic Development and Tourism embark on assisting in finding a possible investor, if is possible?
Yeah, no, in order, that's fine, as long as we get one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Honorable Van Wyk.
Hi there, Chair. Yes, I've been listening into most of this meeting today. And I think, you know, what is probably needed is that one starts to look at what the other alternatives are for that factory facility, for the use of that factory facility. And, you know, that's probably a role where DDAT and Westgrow can be looking at. Because if we listen to what has taken place in the fruit canning industry worldwide, it's obviously the shifts that have taken place over the last few years have been fairly dramatic. And I suppose what is concerning is how do we as South Africa keep ourselves aware of what world trends are, and you know, certainly assisting industry as well if there is any of that type of intelligence that is available, so that we certainly don't find that our producers and then in effect our communities and our workers are then caught short by not adapting fast enough and rapidly enough to trends that are taking place in the world. And therefore, just looking at the flip side of it, there are probably products that we could be looking at that possibly we could be producing in that Tulbagh area, for which that canning factory could then be utilized, other than this area of fruit. You know, so there might well be other products that would also require canning, for instance, that could well be useful in terms of products that might also be needed on that export market. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Van Wyk. Yeah, I think that was one of the questions that I wanted to pose, but I thought maybe it might not really be worthwhile to pose to them, but rather to DDAT to look at. Yeah, I hope you got it, Sharin, in terms of that resolution, to say that maybe the department can look at alternative production, you know, opportunities within that, because I mean the canned food is obsolete, so you've got to look for alternative ways of ensuring that you use the factory to produce something else that is in demand globally, you know. So I think I fully agree with you there. Yeah. So honorable members, yeah. So I think from my side, Sharin, if they can also send you the last 3 years financial report link, so that members can familiarize themselves with regards to historical matters on this particular factory as we go into debate in the House on Thursday. Yeah. With that said, really, honorable members, thank you very much. And I must also thank the, I did note the some presence of members of the public, Magdalene, Espin, and Sebastian. Really thank you for taking interest in our meeting and for joining. Thank you very much. I did note your comments, and they were kind of covered by members in terms of addressing when they were putting questions. I did cover Magdalene's question with regards to seeing if we can get, this process being extended in a way. But yeah, and obviously the last by Sebastian Julie, I think we covered it now with Honorable Van Veek indicating that maybe, the department should get alternative ways of using the factory so that, it doesn't become obsolete. Yeah. With that said, really thank you very much. And thank you to all the members of the public that have joined Nomfundo. Thank you. Samik, thank you for broadcasting us fully today. We really appreciate. And once again, thank you, Shireen. For all those that want to really speak or compliment or congratulate Shireen, over to you. The floor is yours now. Starting with Honorable Brent Hayes.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, through you, Chair.
Shireen, your camera must be on, because the members are really making important statements here.
I'm gonna cry now, Chair, but I'm gonna try to keep my emotions at bay. Thank you very much, Shireen, for your services over the years, especially to our committee. It's highly appreciated. You are not just a procedural officer to us, but you are like family to us. We have traveled many travels together, locally as well as abroad. And we're gonna hang on to those beautiful memories. We're gonna miss you. You're not gonna be far. You're still in the WCPP. But yeah, thank you very much for all what you have done for us as a committee. And may your years ahead be very a lot of full of joy and health and strength. And may all your endeavors be a great success going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, member. Thank you so much for those words.
Any other member? Going once, going twice, going thrice. Oh, there's Honorable Mare.
Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity, and I just want to wish Ms. Shireen Niker all the best for the future, and I want to thank her on behalf of Mr. Murray Senior for having served members beyond this committee. Even walking some of our members to there when they are away, Shireen would be walking alongside Mr. Murray Senior to wherever his room is for this, when they sleep over or where they stay, over at certain places. From Mr. Murray Senior, I would like to convey congratulations, and I'm sure he would be very proud to hear this. I will convey it to him this afternoon, and I want to wish you all the best for the future. And thank you also for the manner in which you serve. A lot of people serve, but it is the way you serve that also adds lots of value. And your experience, you deserve this promotion. So well done, and we are very proud of you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you, member.
Thank you, Honorable Mare. Honorable Brand, I'm even emotional.
Chair, I think it's all been said, but and I have spoken to Shireen already personally when I found out the other day. But just to echo those sentiments, Shireen, you have been an invaluable asset to this committee and to all of us and to the cluster in general, and onwards and upwards and moving not too far away and into a more important role. So we'll miss you, but I'm sure we'll see you around very soon. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, member.
Thank you, honorable members. Sorry, Sharon, that we have to make ourselves emotional as well. So, yeah. But honorable members, the meeting is adjourned, and thank you really very much for today's discussion. It was quite fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you, Chairperson.
You're welcome, member.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Nomfundo, Samir.
Yeah, you can have a glass of wine. Oh, there's no one. You can now have a glass of something, cool drink, just to cool yourself down.
Thank you, Nomfundo. I'm going to exit the meeting. Bye-bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.